this computer. I want to welcome you all and thank you for attending this very special event today, where I feel honor our dear friend and mentor and guide to all things Irish in the West, Professor Emeritus James P. Walsh. So it's a real honor to host this event. He wanted to encourage everybody. This is Q&A, not a presentation. I've got some prepared questions. We'll go through that. The notion was that at about 20 minutes, we'd throw open the floor. So please feel free to leap right in, either present questions through chat, or which I will read, or just speak right up. In programming notes for the ILHS, we will present what's upcoming events include Professor Erin Costello-Wecker from Montana, who will be speaking on Kate Kennedy. She's doing some interesting research on our local heroine, and from Duleet, County Meath, where my great-grandfather came from. That'll be September 28th on Zoom. She was going to be attending in person, but the novelist Kevin Barry is going to be visiting Butte, and she wanted to be there for that. So she'll be presenting on Zoom. Then October 12th, our friend Miles Duncan will be presenting his historical novel, The Red Branch, set in 1880 San Francisco, in person, October 12th at the Irish Center. So you look forward to that. But we're very pleased to present Professor Emeritus James P. Walsh today in conversation about his life and historical studies on the Irish in the West. He was born in San Francisco in 1937 of Galway and Cork parents, Patrick and Nellie Murphy Walsh. They provided Jim and his older brother Leo with a secure and progressive home, plus unlimited educational support. Both boys attended St. Monica's Parish Grammar School and Sacred Heart, and they earned multiple degrees at the University of San Francisco. Leo followed his business curriculum and took a career in the San Francisco Hospital Administration and the creation of the UICC, the Irish Cultural Center's scholarship program. Jim took a different path, crossed the Bay, continuing his studies at the University of California, Berkeley, which I think still remains the top-ranked history department in the country. Jim, am I correct in that assertion?
Could be, yes. We'll say so anyway.
Well, the proof's in the pudding, in the work. Earned his PhD in 1970. Interesting years to be on the Berkeley campus, I believe. He taught history at Marin Catholic High School, and then he and Ann McKinnon married in 1962. Jim's, I would agree, one of his best moves. And took up residence at the UC Berkeley Student Village in 64, followed by a move to the South Bay in 66. There, Jim accepted an appointment as assistant professor of history at the rapidly growing San Jose State University. By then, Ann and Jim had 2 preschool daughters who were joined later by their one brother. The family now includes 8 grandchildren. Jim's San Jose State career between 1966 and 95 was a blend of teaching, publishing, and academic administration. Due to the accelerated growth of the university, the mentoring of the university's all-time outstanding professor, and not smudging his own copybook, Jim successfully negotiated professor of history, chair of the department, dean of the college, and retired as provost of the university. And this year marks the 30th year of his retirement. En route, Jim published 9 books, 8 on the American Irish, and numerous scholarly articles that address the unique acculturation experienced by the Irish in California and the West. As well, he, Anne, and the children enjoyed 2 year-long Fulbright appointments at the National University of Ireland in Galway and Cork, his parents' homes, plus a term as distinguished visiting professor. Oh. Through the years of repeated Irish residence, their children attended Irish schools, national, secondary, and postgraduate. Over his career, and amidst this mix, Walsh identified 2 satisfying accomplishments. His 1970s terms as president of the Irish Literary and Historical Society, and his co-founding and inaugural presidency in '85 of the American Conference for Irish Studies, Western Region, which will be meeting November 7th, 8th, 9th this year in Portland, Oregon. All are invited to attend. So with that, I'd like to sort of begin our discussion um, with a series of questions for Jim. Jim, but before we begin, do you have any introductory remarks for before we get into the Q&A today?
Yeah, yes, I do, Tony, and thanks for asking. That was a glorious introduction. I didn't come here, however, on my own. We have glorious predecessors that far exceed my accomplishments in Irish studies, and I need to mention them briefly just to set the context. All of us in the Irish Literary and Historical Society are familiar with the career of Bob Tracy at the University of California. He was an all-time heavy hitter in academia. He was well published and a frequent lecturer on Irish authors and Irish literature. He was earlier in his career an expert on Trollope, Dickens, even with Russian poetry. Like maybe not like all heavy hitters from heavy hitting institutions, Bob Tracy had plenty of time for our local institution, the Irish Literary and Historical Society. I want to thank Becky for sharing him with us all these years. And I want to thank you, Tony, for the wonderful memorial article you wrote on him. When I said his name into my search line in Google, up came your fine article, which allowed me to refresh myself on his outstanding career. Certainly the brightest light of the Irish Literary and Historical Society. He always had time for us. Another bright light was Kevin Starr, who most of you remember. Bob passed away 5 years ago in 2020. Kevin Starr 8 years ago in 2017. Kevin Starr was a local boy from Reardon High School, the University of San Francisco, and then has a doctorate from Harvard, probably in American Studies. He's most famous for his 8-volume series on California and the American Dream. He got recognition for this at the White House, receiving the National Humanities Medal from the President of the United States. If you look up Kevin Starr in Wikipedia, you'll see a lovely picture of him in the White House with the American flag behind him. I think Kevin was at his happiest at that moment. He didn't have all the time that Bob Tracy had for us in the Literary and Historical Society. He gave us quality time. He lectured frequently, most often at our annual banquets. He and one other are the only authors that are in both of the Literary Society's publications on the San Francisco and Bay Area Irish history. The third and final predecessor I'd like to meet, maybe you're not familiar with. He was a St. Monica's Grammar School. He went there with me, graduated 2 years ahead of me, John Patrick Diggins. He went on to Sacred Heart High School, then to Berkeley, to USC, and became certainly one of America's public intellectuals of great note, of an international reputation. Jack Diggins published 16 books on American intellectual history. He covered American history from the founding fathers to Ronald Reagan, 16 volumes plus a variety of articles. Jack got his start with a bang. Right after his PhD, he published 2 articles immediately in the American Historical Review, the most prominent journal for history here in America. He ended up publishing his last book on Ronald Reagan. So he had a big start. Now, he was sort of an exile. He was the reverse of Bob Tracy. Diggins taught in Southern California and then in New York at the City University of New York in its graduate program. However, he never forgot the Irish in San Francisco. His one Irish studies book was the intellectual biography of Eugene O'Neill. He used to lecture occasionally at the Eugene O'Neill House in Pleasanton or Danville, wherever it's located. Uh, he was always true to his San Francisco roots. His ashes were spread at the beach, looking up at the Golden Gate. And in his will, Jack Diggins, a former Catholic, left $250,000 to the Fighting Irish Sacred Heart, the team he played basketball for. Back in 2009, $250,000 went a long way. So these are our predecessors. We have a proud history as members of this Irish Literary and Historical Society in San Francisco, and I'm honored to be included in this interview today. So, so much for the foreplay, Tony. Let's go ahead with the Q&A.
Thank you, Jim. So Jim, you were born into an Irish American family here in San Francisco. Would you say that enveloped you into a strong Irish American culture, informed your sense of Irish ethnicity? What role did that have?
Well, yes and no, I would say. The literature and the examination of why we came to America has two answers. One is we were compelled, we were driven out, we were unwilling exiles. The other is that we came willing, that our forebears wanted to come here. Now, this has been argued for a long, long time by academics. Out here in the West, where things seem to have been softer, easier, acculturation was easier, there was greater wealth, all these answers. We come down on the side of voluntarism. My father always wanted to come to America. He was a postman in Ireland as a young man. He used to read mail for those that were illiterate, and this mail came from all over America. He said he learned about America in school. He wanted to come here. So he had this progressive propulsion within the family to get here and to integrate. The neighborhood Leo and I grew up in was a working class, middle class mix. It was a mix of ethnicities. It wasn't some sort of a ghetto. If you read, say, Oscar Hanlon's Boston Immigrants, and you circled every negative word dealing with the Irish, the thing would look at like target practice at a shooting range. When I read those books, it wasn't what I had experienced. It wasn't what I saw in San Francisco and California. And then this sort of propelled me to question this negative interpretation when I saw movies and TV programs that portrayed the Irish in such a negative way. It wasn't my experience. So I think that this family culture of looking forward rather than looking backward provided this mix. Yes, I was enveloped in an Irish Catholic family life at home. Most of my parents' friends were from the old country, but yet they shared the family expectations that you look forward rather than look backward. So I'd say it's a mix, Tony. It's a long-winded answer to a simple question.
Thank you. That was interesting. So you wouldn't have any form of the sort of chip on your shoulder that you would have in Boston if you're working class.
I won't speak for the Bostonians, but the only thing my father regretted at death was having to leave it all.
That's terrific.
He found what he was after. So did my mother.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And how and when did you get interested in Irish subjects on an academic basis? Do you remember the first Irish book you read? You know, who gave it to you?
Oh, yeah. I still have it, in fact. It was sent to my mother by her brother from Cork. It was John Barry's Guerrilla Days in Ireland.
Oh.
And it arrived probably in the early part of, well, I guess I'd have to go look at it, maybe the 50s. I was sick in bed with the flu at home from school when the book arrived. And my mother gave it to me and told me to read it and tell her about it. So I did. It introduced me to Irish history. I never followed up on an interest in military history, but that was it. Schools I went to really didn't help at all in promoting an interest in Irish studies or in Ireland. St. Monica's Elementary School had a standard Americanized curriculum. There were plenty of Irish nuns among the Sisters of the Holy Name. I can remember one, Sister Raphael, in the seventh grade. She had quite a brogue, and we would sing Irish songs during music time, which was once a week. That was about it. At USF, Irish history, I was a history major. Irish history was not taught when I was there in the 50s. I took straight American history, and the only time I was able to latch on to Irish subjects when I could select things for myself. There was an excellent American historian there, Ashbrook Lincoln, and he encouraged you to do what you're interested in. So I used to start off with book reports on Irish American history, Wilson, Treaty of Versailles, World War I, that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
And then an MA thesis, I did it on de Valera's visit to the United States in 1919, which led to my first publication in 1962. At Berkeley, pretty much the same thing. You could do what you wanted, but there weren't Irish history courses readily available there in my day. So I did a PhD dissertation on Peter York as a regent of the university, and it led to one thing after another. So I would think it would be a personal compulsion rather than a curriculum at any of these institutions that drew me into Irish subjects. Keep in mind that I'm not an Irish historian. My field is American history.
Mm.
My research and writing has been on the Irish, mostly, if not all, within San Francisco and California. So it had positive spin-offs. I was selected twice for Fulbright Awards to Ireland because, and not because I knew Irish history or could teach Irish history. They had enough of Irish historians themselves and probably wouldn't want an American to come and teach it. They had enough of scholars of their own. They were interested, however, in the Irish in America. And for that reason, I was selected twice to do that and go all the way in Cork. It was a bonus. Luck has a lot to do with things too. The president or the chair of the Irish side of the Fulbright Committee the year I applied was the president of the University of Galway. And Peter York of San Francisco was born in Galway and was a notable for Galwegian scholars and academics. So he appointed me, even though, or his committee appointed me, even though there was no offering up front for anybody to teach American history in Ireland. He created it, apparently, and gave it to me, not knowing me at all because of the York connection.
Mm-hmm. I see. I see. Well, and Peter York is particularly apt, isn't it? You spent, I'm digressing a little bit, but this is important. You spent a great deal of time immersed in Peter York and the history of Peter York. And Peter York was instrumental in bringing some kind of Irish studies to UC Berkeley, was he not?
Yes, he was. It wasn't also altogether successful.
Right.
York was a failure as a regent of the University of California. He was completely overshadowed by a California attorney, the dean of the California bar, Garrett McInerney.
Wow.
Garrett McInerney was a very long time serving regent of the University of California and overshadowed York. York was a political spoiler, and he saw to it that an Irish studies program, so-called, was instituted at the university when Wheeler was the president. And this never really was adequately funded or supported. It was in name only. So you had a graduate student who spoke Irish, who was giving a couple of classes at that time. It fell into a disrepair, and I expected to remain that way until our colleague in the Irish Literary and Historical Society, Bob Tracy, recreated it
Oh,
in his early career, and it's
I see.
boomed since.
Well, thank you. So let's turn a bit to your written works. Except for your two-volume history of San Jose State, all of your significant writings have been on the American Irish. How did that develop beyond degree requirements? Did you find a passion and it was an open field to explore?
Uh, I'm sort of short on passion. Uh, it also I'm short on long range planning. Uh, Life is sort of one opportunity after the other. I'm pretty good at identifying opportunities and advancing them, and you know, uh, picking the ingredients out of the air and putting them together for successful activities and programs and books and articles and whatnot. But how did it begin? One thing led to another. Okay. The MA in San Francisco led to my first publication in 1962 on medieval era in America. The dissertation at Berkeley led to the California History Prize in, I don't know, 1972, something like that, on Abe Roof and Schmitz and all the Irish corrupt supervisors in San Francisco. Uh, then I appeared at a conference with Moses Rishin, the ethnic historian from San Francisco State, who spoke to our society on occasions and wrote the introduction to our first book. Uh, Through him, I then met William V. Shannon, who was an editor of the New York Times and had been in Rishin's class at Harvard with Oscar Hanlon. And these things led to invitations to do more things. Along the line was co-editing 40 volumes of Irish American history for the New York Times and Arno Press. I didn't plan these things, they just happened. If there are any young people in the audience, just do positive stuff. Things follow. Good things spin off good things.
Yeah.
So just keep at it. So there was no long range plan, Tony. One thing led to another.
Yeah. But it seems that you had arrived at a particular subject at a particular time, which contributed to,
Yes,
you
thank you.
could ride it. So,
Timing was critical.
yeah,
In the 60s, you had a liftoff of these different studies, women's studies, Black studies, Asian
yeah,
American studies. All these things were not only lifting off in academia, but they were becoming politically interesting, if not controversial. Uh, Moses Rishin, whose name I mentioned from San Francisco State, created a session at a conference also in Portland years ago, in which was titled, "Is Ethnic Studies Legitimate?" or some thing that required validation. And on the panel, he had Black historians, Asians, and he included an Irishman, me. Okay. So anyway, it was an age in which these things were possible. And another reason which cultivated it all and supported it was folks like yourselves, if not your parents. There was an Irish American community that was becoming progressively more interested in its heritage and in its history. They would show up to meetings of the Irish Literary and Historical Society. They
mhm.
would read things. Also, there's a superabundance of journals in order to publish your stuff. When I was a chair and dean, if some faculty member said, "I don't have any place to publish," I would walk them through the library where all these journals went on for rows and rows and floors and floors. But these journals were gaping chasms that needed to be filled monthly. And if you had a good idea, it belonged in one of these journals each year. Yeah, you had for me, I had a combination of things available. Irish American journals. You had California journals, the California Historical Society, Southern California Historical Society. You had the Journal of the West. You had Era Ireland was a forerunner in Irish American stuff. There was plenty of places to get published. So timing and the availability. Also, I had encouragement. Uh, I fell into a tub of butter when I got an appointment to San Jose State. I didn't know it at the time, but I became the 46th tenured or tenure track faculty member in the department when I joined in the 60s. It was immense. Every one of those faculty members, the women and the men, published in their field. The budget of the state university was sufficient to support you in your research activities and the modest travel and the go to places. Further, my mentor, Charles Burdick, who spoke to the Literary and Historical Society on occasion in the earlier days, was the best professor of the system, bar none. He was appointed twice as the outstanding professor of the California State Universities, the only faculty member ever to do that. And he was an immense publisher in German history. He didn't care what new appointees researched and wrote. There was freedom of inquiry, unlike what may be happening to us currently and in the future. This freedom of inquiry had a push behind it. He had an interest in Irish studies, and he pushed me in it. I had an office partner that had experience in teaching Latin, history, debate, and English, and he proofread all my stuff. I was surrounded by friends and supporters, not to mention Anne, who located our house here in Los Gatos, particularly because it had a small study adjacent to the main house, which allowed me privacy to write. And besides that, my advice to young men over the years has to change now because of the computer. I used to advise them in dealing with girlfriends, not only should they be intelligent and witty and all that, but to get them that could spell. If you could spell and have good syntax, you'd have support all your life until the computer came along. It was lovely. Okay. So all these things came together very nicely.
Well, you mentioned your mentor, Professor Charles Burdick, and how did he influence you specifically?
Well, I met him when I was still obligated for Army Reserve requirement. Instead of showing up at weekly meetings, I taught the summers at an Army Intelligence School at the Presidio Monterey. He was on the faculty there.
Oh.
I met him and several other professors. He never encouraged me to go on to graduate school for a PhD, but I looked at him and his friends and thought, hey, this is the life for me. So anyway, that prompted it. When I got there, he was the chairman of the history department. He hired me. In those days, there were more open positions than there were qualified candidates. It was hard to acquire people to teach in a vastly expanding university system. It was growing by leaps and bounds. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I got an appointment there before completing the PhD, and the PhD was a requirement for it. Burdick showed me the ins and outs of research and the research scholarship. More important than that, he sort of induced me into academic administration. It was fun. It was fun to manage things, to manage budgets. This guy had a knack for sniffing out every unspent budgeted dollar. He used to make the rounds at the end of the year, and any departments that hadn't spent their library budget, he used to spend it for them on history books. He spent the unspent English department's budget on English history, which paid dividends later on for people researching in this field. His interest in Ireland, he visited us in our Galway Fulbright year in Ireland with his daughter Darcy. And I made the rounds with him. He lectured at the Irish universities. At San Jose State, he encouraged me to set up exchange relationships with Irish faculty. We had probably 10 or 15 exchanges during my years as chair of the history department and dean of the College of Social Science. We had David Hume as a visitor. Wow. We had Seamus Heaney as a visitor. We had heavy hitters, and we had ordinary folks who taught good classes. We had the first biographer of De Valera, Tom O'Neill. He came, taught a class on Irish politics for the political science department, and a course on Irish history for the history department. One after the other in English and history. So Burdick was my mentor. I regretted his early demise, and was a friend of Irish history and Irish studies, a friend of the Irish Literary and Historical Society, even though nobody knows him.
Well, now we do. Thank you. Do you have any second thoughts or regrets regarding the subjects you have addressed or not addressed?
Had to take a drink. Yes, I do. I regret not dealing head on with the subject of Irish American racism.
Mhm.
It's, I wouldn't say it's a blot on my career, but it's an imperfection. In recent years, I've read a very interesting book by Erica Lee. Erica Lee's book is America for the Americans. It's a history of xenophobia in America. And it hit me between the eyes how the Irish transformed from being the victims to being perpetrators, particularly here in the West, against the Chinese particularly, but also the Japanese. This is a blot that I recognized in my writings. I mentioned it at particular important points in my writing, but I never really addressed it thoroughly. When I read Erica Lee's book, she had a cartoon of James Duval Phelan's re-election campaign for Senate in 1920. And it was a racist placard indicating that California was for white people. Now, this I should have addressed more. In the Phelan biography by myself and my late good friend and Literary Society member, Tim O'Keefe, we addressed this, but not head on.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding of the written record at the time was that anti-Asian racism in California, I thought it was fully covered by Saxton's book, The Indispensable Enemy, other scholarly works on anti-Asian racism. Also, Walton Bean's textbook, which was prominent through universities, and all future teachers, or almost all future teachers in the California school systems read. He dealt with this racism. So I thought it was out there already. And probably unconsciously, because of being such an unpalatable subject, I easily sidestepped it. In the biography of Phelan, I indicated and recorded that he saw California, he was polite and educated racist. The way he put it was that California should remain a homogeneous commonwealth. That meant white people. Now, it wasn't until I read Erica Lee's book that I realized I was deficient really in addressing this. I was the person that should have addressed it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you.
Let me add one thing.
Yes.
We're making up for what we did. And,
Yeah.
that's largely because of Pat Goggins, our member and the former board member. He has stepped forward in recent years to try to make up for all of this. He's participated with the Chinese Historical Society in the railroad activities commemorating the anniversaries of the Golden Spike, the Laurel Log, his participation with the Chinese in the St. Patrick's Day Parade, the wonderful hours we spent at the Irish Cultural Center under the direction of you, Tony, and Pat on that session dealing with the Irish and the Chinese and building the railroad. This is all positive stuff that we welcome. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Tony.
Oh, Pat's the initiator. Tell us, Jim, about how you got involved with the Irish Literary and Historical Society, and share, if you can, some of your early memorable recollections, because it was and continues to be a really interesting organization, but it's evolved a lot. It's changed a lot.
Yeah. I think I gave my first presentation to the Literary Society, Irish Literary and Historical Society, in the late 1960s. I was a recent appointee at San Jose State. I had a backlog of knowledge that I had to tell you. And I went on and spoke so long that I think I'm still there talking to you. I told you everything I knew. The meeting took place at a place called the Druids Hall.
Yeah.
The Druids Hall was in downtown San Francisco. It was a side street on a side street near Van Essen Market, adjacent to the school board center, the old Commerce High School. And it took a rickety elevator up to the third floor, and it was in some sort of a meeting room that was designed for Masons or different groups like that. You had the seats for the potentates built into the side walls, and I would speak, you would sit there and speak. The next time I spoke, I organized a session. It was a discussion, and I thought I was doing good. I got the outgoing Attorney General of California, who was an Irishman, whose name I can't remember at the moment. But the most memorable presenter that night or discussant was the ex-chief of police, Tom Cahill.
Wow.
This guy had charm.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, he dominated the evening.
Jim, what year was that?
That would have been probably the early 70s.
Early 70s. So he had retired, or was he still in office?
Retired. I think he was working as the head of security for the Pacific Gas and Electric Company. I had interviewed him there at his office, and then he came. He had a laugh a minute from leaving the old country to picking prunes in the Central Valley with some other Irishmen, and they had enough of that when they ate too many prunes and they had stomach upset. And they got to a Highway 101, and they decided they'd be better off in America separate rather than together. So they flipped the coin, and Tom Cahill's buddy headed to LA, and Tom started hitchhiking to San Francisco. During that night, he regaled us on how he learned to be a police officer. It was by being an ice man. He would deliver ice to the freezers of housewives in San Francisco, and going up the back stairs and talking with the neighbors and the old ladies is where he'd get all his information. If you wanted to uncover crime later on, you went up the back stairs and talked to the old people that knew everything. So the Attorney General was polite, respectful, and refined, and Tom Cahill was a total blast. Okay. The next event between me and our society came after the first Fulbright and some more books being published. One of the members of the board, what the heck was his name? The guy that recruited me. Phil O'Rourke. How could I forget Phil O'Rourke? He invited me to have lunch with him at the Tadish Grill in the business section of downtown. And he told me that I was the next president of the Irish Literary and Historical Society. He didn't ask me, he told me.
He told you.
Yeah.
And what was your reaction?
Oh, it was okay with me, I guess. You know, what are the duties? The only duties were to line up speakers and to set up programs. He and Eileen Kiplehan took care of everything else. the
Yeah.
banquets, what have you. So the society was booming at banquet time, but languishing at lecture time.
Okay.
It was before the internet and
Yeah.
before good connectivity. So it
Right.
was hard to get speakers. You really had to dig deep and generate finds in order to keep the program going. One of the good things that came along was the celebration of the bicentennial of the United States in 1976. Ed Calman, the longtime director of the board of the chair of the board of directors of the Literary and Historical Society. He was on the library commission at the time.
Oh
He
yeah.
had an office in the library downtown. And when the United States government decided to celebrate the bicentennial nationwide, they created a program of 12 themes, one for each month, and put out grant options for local societies to apply to. So Callan was up on this, and he asked me if I would write up the application, which I did. And then he provided the office for the local administrator, the Western administrator of this National Endowment for the Humanities sponsored program. We gave him an office in the San Francisco Public Library. So our application, of course, was approved. So with the money that we got, instead of providing it as honorariums for our monthly speakers, I informed them that it was going to be used to support the publication of the first book, which the Irish Literary and Historical Society brought out in, I guess, the year after 76. So anyway, we were able to get that one out on a limited budget.
Did you have a part in the subsequent volume, by the way?
The second volume was done by Tim O'Keefe and the late Don Jordan. Don
Yeah.
Jordan begun it. He died of brain cancer early in the project, and his collected materials were passed on to Tim O'Keefe by Marion Jordan, Don's widow. And Tim O'Keefe then developed it and brought out the second volume, which you're familiar with as well.
Yes.
And Bob Tracy contributed to that. Kevin Starr contributed to both, as I was privileged to do so.
Yes.
So the society brought both of them out on a limited budget
Yeah.
and successfully. They were both very well reviewed.
Yeah. Really, really excellent, excellent books. So turning now to your current phase of your life, or well, your 30 years of successful retirement, hats off to you. How has retirement treated you in relation to your Irish studies interest? Because you remained extremely active. What have you been doing?
I've been coasting on past successes, like today. I stopped writing serious stuff or stopped doing research. The last article I wrote was a little reminiscence of my brother Leo taking me to see Bill Russell's college debut at Kezar Stadium in the 1950s. That was fun. I got that out when shortly after Bill Russell died. Mm-hmm. Since then, I've sort of been devoting myself to family history. During the pandemic, Ann and I sort of buttoned down at home, didn't go anywhere for 4 years. In order to stay mentally alert, our son Dan treated us to access to Ancestry.com. And Ann filled in her family back to the 1600s.
Wow.
The Walsh side of the Irish family only went back to the 19th century due to the poverty of Irish materials. Nonetheless, I've made the most out of this. Ann and I sponsored family reunions. Last year we hosted, I think it was 53 at a Los Gatos Park for a picnic. We had 4 coming in, flying in from my father's home village. We've entertained my mother's side of the family. A nice neighbor next door to us here in Los Gatos actually vacated their home and gave it to our relatives for 10 days so they could live next door to us and enjoy life in the South Bay. Last year, I organized the 40th anniversary meeting of the American Conference for Irish Studies in Missoula, Montana, which Professor Wecker organized. That was a lot of fun. I brought in a cousin, Tig Foley, from Ireland, who was a founding member of the American Conference for Irish Studies in San Francisco in 1985. He had been a Fulbright appointee at the USF. Last week, hosted 30 here at home, celebrating my father's 100th anniversary of coming to America from Galway. Upcoming a conference in Portland in November, where the conference theme is community. And I'm going to address community with my son, Dan, and two of his second cousins through family history. They've come up with a lot of enthusiasm for this. The three of them were in Ireland during the summer, catching up on their own family history and doing more research. So what I'm sort of doing, Tony, is coasting on successes of the past and indulging myself in with Anne and the family. Our two daughters live close by. Our son lives in Portland, and it's a good mix. My father and mother would have been happy.
It's easy to see that that would be the case. We are at a good point now to encourage. Good, Carolyn, please.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I don't believe you're coasting, but it's well deserved if that's in fact what you're doing. I was just wondering if you have time now to be thinking about our current political situation. It strikes me that among many crises that the United States is facing, it's a lack of history. It's a lack of understanding of history and historical trends. And I'm just wondering if your time and experience, you've got any insights on our current political realities.
I'm not quite depressed, but I'm getting there. This is exceedingly difficult. These Fulbright programs, for example, have been curtailed among so many other things. The lack of history and the understanding of it, who's to blame but people like me? We were the professors. I think most Americans up to now chose what's happening and continue, as far as I can tell, across the nation to approve of what's happening. Maybe one of the reasons why I've immersed myself in family history and the successes we've had here in California. I don't feel competent to offer any solution to this. I feel in part a failure as a historian. Sorry.
Brian?
I hope this doesn't end the Q&A.
Let's end on a positive note, shall we? Brian?
I have two related questions about your issue of having some regret about the that you didn't delve into the racist issue as much. You know, I was educated in the 70s. I certainly was aware of, Dennis Carney, Father York, Phelan's racial attitudes. So my first question is, what more would you have done looking back in terms of your research or amplifying on that issue? And then the second question is, there's a lot of revisionist history, changing names of named after people. Down here in San Jose, the first California governor, Peter Burnett, had a middle school named after him, and because of his racial views, they changed the name of the school. How should we look at some of these historical figures like Phelan and Father York in terms of our current,
Okay.
way we see things.
Yeah. They shouldn't be abolished. They shouldn't be removed or erased. They should be further understood. I think that's emerging. Now, in terms of how would I have handled it differently? Certainly, as the only substantial biography of James Duval Phelan, O'Keeffe and mostly me. O'Keeffe was an Irish historian. I'm an American historian in California, particularly. I should have dealt with his racism more directly rather than obliquely. It was part of his fiber. It was what he was elected on time and time again in San Francisco and statewide as a senator. This should be dealt with. I didn't anticipate the strength of this new interest. It wasn't that I tried to hold it back, but I didn't anticipate it. Now, I forgot the first part of your question, Brian.
Yeah, that was you answered it. What you would do differently. So thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
You're looking wonderful after all these years.
Thank you.
Other questions? Tom Murphy, are you trying to talk?
There's
Over
Uta
there.
Goggins.
Yes,
There we are.
I'm in. I think I'm in. So,
Hi, Tom.
hi, Jim. So, my interest from an East Coast point of view has to do with voluntary immigration, and in all my years of teaching immigration on a secondary level and my involvement with Irish groups and looking at Irish history, there always seems to be a sense of victimization, which you mentioned earlier. And it seems that, especially in competing with different groups for attention, that the group that has the more victimization gets the more attention. And I'm just wondering, how did you, how did academia react to your sense of voluntary immigration? And did you have to deal with this endemic victimization that seems to be so part of at least the East Coast sense of immigration?
Yes, very good observation and point, Tom. It's difficult to tell people that it was easier in the West, it was softer, we were happier and did better. Okay. That's not an easy message to receive. Okay. It took a while to convince academia that the experience of adjusting of Irish people to the American West was these things. Labor unions were in charge of things under Irish management early on. That the Catholic Church wasn't abused in California and San Francisco as it was elsewhere. This idea of no Irish need apply was real, but not here. When I interviewed Vincent Hallinan and working on his biography, he was born in the 19th century. I asked him what he thought about this subject, and he said that there was nobody here ahead of us that got the upper hand. We were a hard-working group, and there was nobody to assign a second place. We were there at the start. To get here, you had to have more resources, and you had to know that here was here. And departing Ireland or moving from elsewhere. It took a bit of an effort to convince even academics that this was the case. I had a fun time once in a documentary that was being made on the Irish in America. It was for TV. It was on for a couple of hours when they finally finished it. But when they came out here to interview me on the Irish experience in San Francisco and the West, I demanded my fee in advance. The reason I did that, because I knew that I wasn't going to get any screen time when they edited this. The reason being that I pointed out the greater wealth of the society, the easier access to that wealth in the society from the gold rush on. The leadership positions earlier in San Francisco than Boston, New York, Chicago, or anywhere else in the United States. True enough, I never saw screen time. Why? Because they had a single theme fits all. And that theme was the Irish were deprived and despised through their history in the United States. Okay, well, it's a partial answer. Okay. So in answer to your question, Tom, it was tough convincing people of this. Now it's sort of understood, at least around here in the West, and I find it sort of funny. Some of the results of my early articles and research is that I hear public presentations by people that even use the same statistics that I use and the same examples, and they have no clue as to where it came from. They don't know that I originated and created it and put it into public circulation. So that part is quite amusing. A recent, very popular book in San Francisco was The Season of the Witch. I'm not mentioning the name of the author because he didn't mention me as the source of this information. The Season of the Witch sold very well. And the introductory chapter that set up the book, there was nothing in it that wasn't in my biography of Vincent Hallinan. I got a telephone call from Anne's brother, late Richard McKinnon, saying, "Hey, what am I doing publishing under a pseudonym?" He had read the book and thought I had republished or recycled the old stuff under a new name for lucre. You know, I had a colleague at San Jose State that brought the book to my attention, and he said, "Jim, this guy stole your stuff." You know, well, it didn't bother me. It's nice to have your intellectual children reborn, and if it promotes somebody else's career in a good book, all the better. Besides that, I had my father's approach to things. That was, what was I in this for? I published a good book on Vincent Hallinan, and it was well reviewed. It didn't make any money, but it got me promoted at San Jose State. It got me tenure. It probably helped make me dean. At universities, faculty are under the mistaken view that you have to publish books to be a successful administrator. I don't think there's any relationship to the two at all. They still have this bias that they promote people into positions of management because they're scholars and successful. Well, Hallinan book allowed me to move ahead and retire 30 years ago at the top of the heap that way. The guy that wrote The Season of the Witch, I have no idea how he's doing. Well, it's, I think the idea that the Irish have done better for themselves and easier in the West is alive, but it's not perfect as an explanation. Dave Amons has dealt with in several books on the Irish in Montana. The Irish working in the mines didn't have it particularly easy. They had permanent employment, there's no doubt about that, but it wasn't a soft life. My namesake, James Patrick Walsh, the next president of the American Conference for Irish Studies, who will be hosting the national convention in Colorado next year, he's done an awful lot of research and has created a public monument, the Pauper's Grave, those Irish that died impoverished in the mines in Leadville, Colorado. So there's an awful lot of research and yet to do, and a lot of thinking on this subject. So I'm pleased with what I've been able to contribute, and welcome other people to disagree. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Pat, you had the question.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good. Thank you. I wanted to also thank Jim for his contribution to the causes. He was advisory to the Irish Forum, and he referred Professor Dermot Keogh to the Irish Forum, who became a principal on our work for Irish Foreign Peace in Ireland. And Jim has helped a lot with his own advice, and appreciated very, very much.
You're welcome, Pat. You were the standard bearer of all that work, and none of it would have happened without you. Dermot Keogh was a fine contributor to all of this. He was a Fulbright scholar visitor at San Jose State, and it's because of my mentor, Charles Burdett, that he was there. Dermot Keogh was a live wire in the term that he was at San Jose State. He even got the Irish Tourist Board to donate 2 free trips to Ireland in 2 weeks of touring Ireland in the north to his class for those that wrote the best essays. Dermot was the promoter. So he granted these awards, and 2 of the San Jose State kids got summers in Ireland gratis. A lot of good things happened.
When we had Dermot Keogh speak at for the Irish Literary and Historical Society, it was the best crowd we ever had, and it was on his book about Jews in 20th century Ireland. Keogh was a very outreach-oriented person, and so that was one of his major areas of outreach. And we had people come to that event who were Jewish people from Belfast, Northern Ireland, and elsewhere around. So, at any rate, your bringing Dermot Keogh to us was a part of your contributions, and so thanks again.
You're welcome, Pat.
Other questions?
Well, we aimed at 50 minutes for this, and I think we're beyond that. I'm quite willing to spend the rest of the day with you good folks. It's an honor here, but I'll follow your direction, Tony.
Well, I could talk to you all day, but that's just me. I'm going to do this. I'm curious about your relationship with the Hallinan family, and perhaps you could provide a capsule.
Yes.
For those who aren't familiar, and I will open this question by saying that anyone who can defeat 2 determined robbers with his bare fists at age 78 merits a lot of respect. And you know what I'm talking about, Jim?
Yeah, Vincent. Yeah.
Yes.
The head of the family, Vincent Hallinan. It was a pleasure to do his biography. It was exciting too. When I came back from the first Fulbright in Ireland, I was looking for a new project, a new book to write. So I was always interested in the Hallinans. Vincent was the only one I knew of. He was always in the newspapers when I was growing up as a kid in San Francisco as a trial lawyer and argumentative and perhaps nasty. Okay. So anyway, the other option besides him would be the Phelan biography. The Phelan papers were immense and were at the Bancroft Library in Berkeley and would remain there indefinitely. So I thought, why don't I ask Hallinan if he'd cooperate in being interviewed. The Phelan papers would be there forever. I could take that up at some subsequent decade. So anyway, my father and I went to a court case in the City Hall, San Francisco, where Hallinan was defending some lost cause. I forget which one it was at the time. But anyway, my father took the initiative after the case adjourned for the day and approached Hallinan and introduced himself and said his son was a young professor looking for a new research topic. Would he meet my son? Okay. So anyway, Hallinan would meet anybody. So anyway, my father introduced Hallinan and me, and I made an appointment to go to his office, which was in an old Victorian on Eddy Street near Van Ness. He lived in a high-rise apartment with his fashionable wife, Vivian, in Pacific Heights, or on the edge slope of the marina. So anyway, met him. Would he be cooperative? Of course he'd be cooperative. He had written an autobiography of himself previously that was published. Actually, he didn't write it. He had a ghostwriter. So that was out. He pointed that out to me. And then when he looked at my resume with all this Irish stuff and USF and Catholic affiliations, he said, "Why don't you write a biography of some bishop?" So he tried to be dismissive. So he was, of course, an atheist for a long time, proclaimed so avidly. So anyway, I told him, I'm not interested in that. If you're not interested, I'll have to look elsewhere. But are you? And so he said yes. So anyway, I took up researching that one with interviewing him every Wednesday. I drive up to San Francisco. I didn't teach on Wednesdays, and interview him. Further, his father, who had been from I think from Limerick. They were related to the De Valera, Churchill relatives. His father lived as being maintained by Vincent. Vincent, once he made it in law, maintained the entire family. He had a large number of siblings, a dysfunctional father, and a long-suffering mother. So anyway, the father, in his spare time, used to keep a scrapbook of his son Vincent. So I had all the newspaper clippings right there at hand before the internet tied all these things together. And so I had the immense scrapbooks with photography from his youthful days in school. He won the mathematics medal so often at St. Ignatius High School, the Jesuits gave it to him permanently. I think he still had it. And then I became familiar with the family. His wife, Vivian, was a wife of 50 years who survived him. The two of them lived in a high-rise overlooking San Francisco Bay and the Golden Gate Bridge. So I used to go there to read this stuff. And I used to interview Vince at his office. So that was a lot of fun. Then I'd branch out to read the newspapers, the coverage of the trials, the transcripts of the trials. Then I interviewed all the judges and the prosecuting attorneys that would see me. A lot of them would not see me. They despised the man because when he beat them, he rubbed it in. He rubbed it in deep. He sued the Catholic Church over a bequest of an opponent of his, pushed it all the way to the Supreme Court, and prevented the settlement of that estate for decades. It was all vindictive. So he had that part to him. I met most of the sons. One died early, and Terrence would have been the most notable. He was a supervisor in San Francisco, city attorney, or whatever the title is, and he was defeated by Kamala Harris. Yeah. So it was engaging. I couldn't wait for Wednesdays when I'd go up to interview the guy. It was fantastically interesting, engaging, funny. I was 40 and he was 80 at the time, and he remembered everything. He walked to work in his 80s from the marina to his office on Van Ness and Eddy, or Ellis, whatever it was. So anyway, it was a fun thing. The book came out. It was published by California publisher Presidio Press. It was well reviewed. Didn't sell beyond the Bay Area except for libraries and institutions. It's one of my happier publications. Thanks for asking.
Well, you were one of the few people around who know what you know about him, and gained most of it through personally speaking to the guy, and that's kind of super interesting. So thank you for that, Jim. Do we have any other questions? If not, we can all go and enjoy the California sunshine this afternoon, which might appear.
Okay. Thank all of you for showing up. This was an honor for me to be part of this, and I'm honored particularly by your presence. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Jim, and I want to give you a round of virtual applause. The honor was ours. It's been an honor to associate with you, and we look forward to continued um, association and activities and your face on this screen and in person. Thank you very much.
Okay, I look forward to next month when Dr. Weckler will be presenting, and I can be a face in the crowd. Thanks.
Yeah. That's going to be very, very good. We'll see you all September 28th. I believe we're going to do it at noon online. So thank you all very much for attending today, and we look forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye.
Good
Thank
seeing
you.
you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you. Which one do I go up here?
No.